Welcome to Lesson 11 of A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams. We'll be focusing on the final scenes, scenes 10 and 11, and the title of our lesson is Dramatising Controversy. I'm Mrs. Bart, and we're going to take a look together at this controversial, fascinating end to the play. This is all the equipment you need today. It's the usual, but with the addition of an annotation pen. Today's learning objectives are to understand the dramatic function of the rape scene. That's of course an AO1, AO2 area of knowledge. But we're also going to evaluate the typicality of the play and to apply our understanding in a typicality analysis. Both of those objectives relate to AO4. If you need to get yourselves organised with any of the equipment that you might not have to hand, please press pause and unpause when you've organised yourself. Today's Do Now focuses on a quotation, a very famous one, from scene 10. Stanley says, "We've had this date with each other from the beginning." I'd like you to underline with your annotation pen or to highlight if you prefer to highlight, and then with your annotation pen to work around this quotation answering these questions. What does he mean by date? In what ways has this date been prepared for from the beginning of the play? Press pause to complete the Do Now and unpause when you're ready to move on. I'm now going to pass on some key knowledge to you. Please be ready to take some notes. It's going to be focused on scene 10 with the subtitle Dramatising Controversy. It's AO2 because we're going to be looking at the dramatic function of the rape scene. Streetcar had already been performed on Broadway for a good 3 years before a film, the very famous film, directed by Elia Kazan and starring Marlon Brando and Vivian Leigh, was about to be made. The film had a degree of difficulty getting scene 10 past American censors. As you know, Williams embraces realism as well as expressionism in his dramatic style. And realism comes to the fore here in this rape scene with its concern to explore taboo topics. Williams felt compelled to write to the Board of American Censors along with Elia Kazan. And I'm going to include a couple of quotations from his letter to the censors so we can understand what Williams' intention was in including the rape scene. He wrote this letter to the censors, and in this part he was reminding them that even churches point out that Streetcar is, and I quote, an extremely and peculiarly moral play, in the deepest and truest sense of the term. So here we have Williams insisting that including the rape scene was a moral decision, and it makes a statement, a moral statement in the play. Perhaps you'd like to think about what that moral statement is. Later on in the letter, the same letter, William insists, I quote again, "The rape of Blanche by Stanley is a pivotal, integral truth in the play, without which the play loses its meaning, which is the ravishment of the tender, the sensitive, the delicate, by the savage and brutal forces in modern society." Here you see that Williams is insisting that not only is the rape scene an essential event in the play, but that you really can't understand the play without it. The play is built on the idea of tender people, but also tender values, also tender lifestyles being taken over and overpowered by more savage and brutal people, values and lifestyle. Here we're reminded by Williams that his intention is to understand the play on a relational level between people, but also on a much larger macro level, if you like, where he's making a statement about society and maybe about this particular time in history. I'd like us to explore scene 11, our final scene now, and I'm going to be handing over much of the work to you. It's an AO1 focused task for you to come up with some ideas about the ending of the play, and it will involve you highlighting, if you use a highlighter, or annotating and writing annotations with your annotation pen. I'd like you to find and either highlight or underline all the 8 quotations that are on the slide. And then once you've done that, I'd like you to pick the one you think is the most significant and annotate to explain why you think it's the most significant. Press the pause button, spend some time highlighting, underlining and annotating, and press unpause when you're ready to move on. We've now come to the end of the lesson, the plenary, where I would like you to apply not just your knowledge from this lesson, but from previous lessons as well. We're going to ask ourselves, having got to the end of studying this play, there are a few more lessons to come. Is this a tragedy, a problem play, a comedy? Where does it fit in terms of typicality? Most people would agree that Streetcar is a tragedy, but let's have a look at this statement from Roxana Stewart, who's an actor who played Blanche in 2 productions. Here's what she says. The first 4 scenes are comedy, then come 2 scenes of elegy, mood, romance, then 5 scenes of tragedy. That's her overview of how the 11 scenes are composed and how they move along. I would like you to explore this statement using evidence and considering the typical elements of these genres. I would like you to write an AO1 plus AO2 plus AO4 paragraph analysis. I'll just remind you that a tragedy is a play that ends in the inevitable death of a tragic hero. A comedy is a light-hearted play in which problems emerge but are resolved happily. And a problem play is a play dealing with contentious social issues with characters representing conflicting views. I would like you to press pause, take your time to put together a really carefully considered AO1 plus AO2 plus AO4 paragraph, and then submit it according to the instructions on Show My Homework. As usual, I will be very interested to see what ideas you come up with, and I will be feeding back to you my thoughts on your ideas and on your composition work. Thank you for your focus.